Now, you said before that the way you can prevent this internal swelling is by producing a higher register note.
Yes, I mean, if I like right now, I'm intentionally trying to use my voice in a manner that uses like higher tones
Yeah.
versus like when I'm talking to people and I use a little bit more of a vocal fry down here. It
Mhm.
doesn't take long before it gets really labored
Okay.
and it
Well,
starts to burn.
let's do some experiments.
Okay.
And by the way, self-experimenting is what this work is all about. I mean, we haven't gotten to Alexander technique self-directions yet, but they're going to be thoughts that you can put out there, and they have to be delivered very, very mindfully. But and you can experiment with using them and not using them to test whether they're helpful or not. But in
Okay.
all of what we're doing, it's going to be you're going to experiment with this, experiment with that. There's no right answer. There's no good. There's no bad. It's
Okay.
just what happens if I do that? What happens if I do that? So the first thing I would suggest you do, if stay in that high range, that high register, if that's what
Okay.
you're calling, for a
Yes.
moment. But what would happen if you just said to yourself, when I speak, I'm only I'm gonna do 30% less effort.
Okay.
Don't worry what that means. Just say, I just want to use a significant chunk less of effort to speak. And maybe
Okay.
recite something or give us a little talk. Start talking with that idea.
Okay. Sure. All right. So I need to give a little bit less
Well,
without getting a
yeah,
little
be
air,
a
just
big
get
hunk less. I'd go for like a third less.
a big chunk less. Okay.
Yeah.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America
Okay,
and to the
keep
republic
going and cut it back another 30%.
for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Yeah, cut it back a little more and see what happens.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands,
Okay,
one
so
nation.
what did you notice?
I mean, I noticed it is my initial gut reaction to speak is projecting. I want to start like my teacher voice and say, "Good morning, everybody. Here we are. We're here today." And it was like
Exactly. And you know
difficult
whose
for me
footsteps
to
you're
pull
in?
back.
F.
Yeah.
Matthias Alexander. Have you ever read the story of how he came
Well,
to this work?
all I know is a blog I read and a little YouTube about how he was a Shakespearean performer and his voice, he'd lose his voice. And so I thought, that's me, buddy. What are we doing?
Late 19th century Australia, no PA system, rowdy tin miners, and a huge a very big barn-like structure.
Yes, yes,
Right. So he wanted to project.
right.
The problem is that his way of projecting caused him to lose his voice. He didn't have any problems just talking to his buddies, but when he
Hmm.
was out there doing his thing. Now, did you also happen to notice that when you cut back the effort quite a bit, nothing seemed to seem like your voice was just fine?
Yeah, I think I'm scared to be too quiet. Like
Well,
I pull back, I won't be
I don't want
heard.
to delve into I'm not trained for that, but I would phrase it more as it's my habit
Yeah.
to put more effort into speaking, um, and probably everything. We'll get to more, but
Uh-huh.
it's pretty clear. Did you notice with each cutting back of effort, in fact, there was less effort, and the
Uh-huh.
as far as I can tell, your voice did not suffer as a result.
Right.
And you
Right.
now that's something to think about.
Okay.
Um, and I would suggest, could we just briefly go into the non-high register?
Yes.
We're just talking about something, nothing very important.
Okay.
Maybe say a few things about what happened today at school. Just say a few
All right.
things.
Okay. This is probably how I would more normally talk. I can feel already that it's
Okay,
not
then keep
using my
talking
best.
that way,
Okay.
but cut back the effort by 50%.
Okay. Okay. So this morning, first period, I taught eighth grade choir.
Cut it back
Second period,
another 50%.
after that, second period, I taught vocal tech, which is an advanced ensemble.
Cut it back some more.
After that, I had a planned period and it took me about
You're getting there. Cut
45
it back
minutes.
a little more.
And after about 45 minutes, I was able to have my lunch. My lunch is at 10:30 in the morning, which is slightly weird.
How does that feel?
I
Right?
mean,
That last little phrase,
it actually
the lunch thing.
just, it actually doesn't really hurt.
No.
I just kind of assumed this voice was always damaging my vocal cords. But
Well,
at this
it probably
a little
was
different.
damaging your vocal cords before. I mean, it was. But I would say your solution was ingenious in a way. It got you out of the having the problem all the time. But there's some cost to shifting to a register that's not your normal one. And to me, I mean, what I'm seeing is that you want to do too much.
Yeah, that's me.
You not only don't have to, but
Okay.
it'd be really good if you didn't.
Okay.
Um, here's another little experiment, a little coming at it a little differently. So right now you're sitting there, we're having a conversation, but you're not saying anything. I'm doing all the talking. Could you, in a moment, maybe just think of maybe your name, Celeste, right? In a moment, what I want you to do is I want you to be very interested in what's going on here. And I want you don't really need your hands there, but just be interested in that area.
Okay. Okay.
And just think about saying your name. Don't say it, just think about it. And then stop thinking about it. And then think about saying it. And did you notice some stuff kicking in at the thought of speaking?
Yes.
Again, F. Matthias Alexander, we're channeling here, because what he eventually discovered is that he was creating tension in his throat, and after he had set up mirrors so he could see himself from different angles. And what he discovered was that when he got up on stage and then was getting about to recite, not just talk to someone next to him, but recite, the tension pattern that was causing his vocal problem kicked in before he even got a word out. It was a pre-vocalization thing. And it would shock me if you didn't have that, to be honest.
I'm
Because
doing that, Robert.
that's your habit that you've acquired, and who knows how. It could be you're teaching kids a lot in school? Like, is this high school, junior high,
Middle school. Middle
middle
school.
school? Yeah, there's a, you got this class of kids. You definitely want everyone to hear you.
Yes, and there's like 60 of them at the same
60.
time. So,
Well, yeah, Alexander had even more, but they weren't kids, but they were rowdy.
right. I
They,
want his
they were
ways.
tin miners in one case, and like they were not. They liked Shakespeare, but they were not. They weren't prepared to just sit quietly.
The quiet, yes.
Listen, yeah. So it could be a mechanism. And you've been teaching kids like this for how long? Quite a while.
17 years.
17 years.
Yeah.
So I'm just, speculating here,
I
but
wonder if, it started with, an actual health issue where I got sick, I lost my voice. And what you're saying of like thinking about speaking causes tension,
just
I
the,
think that's been me for a year and a half.
yeah,
Just the thought of speaking causes my throat to
well,
clam up.
that's compounded by the fact that you have these issues that come up that are painful and get in the way.
Right.
So it's even worse than it maybe would have been before. Alexander, as far as he knew at the beginning, he only did this when he was reciting. But after a while, when he became more sensitive to what was going on, he realized he was doing it all the time. It was just way less
Wow.
and not enough to cause a problem, but maybe over time might cause a problem. In other words, it was not as critical as what he was doing. Being on stage was a whole different thing.
Right.
And the truth is that what he learned is he could project his voice just fine by having the mental intent that it get there, but he didn't need to mess with himself physically very much to do
Uh-huh.
that.
Okay.
He was trying to do it all um by tightening and not, as he would have put it, I didn't use my brain to do this. I used
Mm.
just the straight body. I want to get these guys to hear it, and he just did what came naturally, and it worked great for a few minutes. He would typically be fabulous for the first 10 minutes or so, and then he would start gasping for breath, and he became hoarse, and people would tell him he knew he was losing his voice, and
Uh-huh. Like,
his career was in danger.
right.
Did all the things someone would do. He went to the doctors and that so on. And there's this famous scene that maybe have been made up, or maybe it's true. We don't know, because it was like 130, 40 years ago. But he goes to his regular doctor, who's his doctor, who says he tells him, "Oh, I got this important engagement coming up in a couple of weeks. So what should I do?" And the doctor says, "Just don't say much of anything for a couple of weeks and rest your." And he did that. And then he got up, and it was great for 10 minutes, 15 minutes, and it came back again. So he goes in the next day to see the doctor, and he says, he says, it seems like, to me, it seems like I'm doing something to recite that I don't do anywhere else. Maybe what I should figure out is what that is. And the doctor said, I don't know. Sounds like a plan. And it wasn't no one knew really how to help him. And
Mm-hmm.
that's where he got started. And that out of that came the Alexander technique, which is about a lot more than just speaking or singing, but that's where it came.
Yeah.
So um so I would suggest, first of all, tuning into this and just occasionally consciously saying, hey, what's going on with my sits bones right now? Where
Yes.
And if just maybe play around. Oh yeah, yeah, I can see. If I move around, I can feel how the weight comes in at different angles and stuff. Just
Mm-hmm.
remember, it's down there, and up here, the movement's all between these two fingertips, and even not in front of your kids probably, but at home occasionally. Oh, okay, I can nod around that or a vertical line. Just experiment with that. And then when you're speaking from time to time, as often as you can remember, you don't need to make a big deal of it, but just say, hey, what would happen if I did half the effort?
Yeah, half the
And
effort.
then maybe do another half. We keep going. I mean, we don't know whether it's going to be exactly half. It's not like something you can calibrate that precisely, but just
Hmm.
way less effort. And
Okay.
you might even want to take a phrase or the Pledge of Allegiance or whatever, and just keep going and go, just as an experiment, keep going and see when there comes a point when there's just not really, there's not enough.
Hmm.
My guess is you're going to have to go a long way before that happens.
Okay.
That's what I would do. Um,
Okay. I'll start with that.
I think that would make I, I think if you just experiment with that, don't go rushing into doing the way of speaking that causes problems um, all the time. I mean, be
Uh-huh.
careful. You don't want to exacerbate anything,
Uh-huh.
but I think that it's just a very large amount of overdoing.
Overdoing
Too
everything I do.
much. Well,
My energy is
see,
usually very high.
your what is high?
My energy is very high. And so I go
Yeah,
in to teach and I'm like, energy's high. Go into direct a musical, energy's high. And so I think
yeah, yeah, yeah.
everything
But
I do is so
but your
intense.
energy will still be plenty high. It, um, in physics, energy and force work are the same thing, just as a
Okay.
technical thing.
All right.
Your energy, I think you're confusing extra effort with energy.
Hmm.
The energy can be there. You can you can feel, you can have a sense of, I really want to, want to be here, help these kids, whatever.
Yeah.
But the extra work, I'd say you're overusing physical efforting. You don't
Okay.
need it.
Yeah, that would sound like me.
You don't need it, which doesn't mean that there might not be a moment when it really is important to speak way louder than normal for some reason, but that's going to be relatively rare.
Okay.
And the way, even there, the way louder could be a lot less than your baseline is now, I think.
Right. Yeah.
And
Okay. I'm with you.
and um, I would just focus on cutting back effort with speaking and any other activity you want to explore. Walking,
Okay.
cooking, chopping veggies,
Okay.
whatever. Just say, what would happen? Who knows? What would happen if I just said, I'm going to do 50% less? And if it still seems
Okay.
okay, let's say you do walking. Yeah, I'm still walking, seems fine. Cut it back again, cut it back.
Okay.
Because we don't want
So when
to
I
just
practice,
focus on this, because this is part of a bigger system. It's your whole body
yes.
that's
Okay.
really the issue here, your whole self.
Hmm.
And
Okay, that's good.
you could even, for example, you're just sitting here talking to me right now, you could say, well, what would happen if I put 50% less effort into sitting here?
Hmm.
Go ahead and do it.
Like if how
Just
you're in the
no,
video every time. You're
you
not
don't have
sneaking
to
anywhere. Like
you don't have to
you
move.
just walk behind if you need to. You're not sneaking
Yeah, no
anywhere.
problem. So you're sitting there and you just say, well, I'm using
Okay.
half the effort to sit there that I usually do. Go ahead and do that.
Yeah.
And what happens? You're still sitting
Feels better.
and cut it back again.
And
You just keep cutting it back until something happens that tells you it's too much.
so
Yeah,
like if I start
there's
like
too much
slouching too
right
bad.
there. There's too much. You're collapsing
Mhm.
in a little. Well, you don't need just a little bit, just a little bit more. Yeah.
Okay. I've always been that person with the singer's posture where you're front of the chair, feet on the floor, head in
Yeah,
the air,
yeah,
and you are
yeah.
just effort.
I know.
So much effort into posture.
I know. And you don't want to have to be putting that kind of effort. You don't need it. You watch singers, professional singers. I've worked a lot with singers over the years. And, like a singer, let's say a singer comes up on stage and they're just standing there. Maybe someone else is talking to introduce them. They're just standing there. And then the time comes, okay, now it's time to sing. And instantly they go into this thing where uh, setting themselves basically, which is totally counterproductive. But it's
Right.
been taught I gotta be in a certain position, certain this and that. No, it'd be much better off just singing.
Mm,
But experiment
okay.
with it, play with it. There's no right or wrong. Um, have fun with it.
Okay.
Honestly, I think it'll make your life way easier.
Right. Yeah. I mean, that the whole concept of me giving a little less, I think is like a lifetime of the lifetime of what I've always done being so like in your face
Yeah,
and
and we're human, our bodies are pretty resilient, and
yeah.
you can get away with that for quite a while sometimes with
Hmm.
no obvious downside, but it's going to catch up to you because it's like running a motor a lot faster than it's designed to be, or something of that
Okay.
analogy, something like that. You're just doing too much.
Okay.
I think you're confusing effort with energy and projection,
Yes.
basically.
Because I want to project and I have to teach kids to project.
Yeah, and you want to project, and your intent will be to project, but with less effort.
So I still think and say I am projecting,
Well,
but less effort.
I I would just say, yeah, I do want to project, but I want to keep cutting back on effort and see, especially with those, if you got 60 kids, when it gets to a place where you've cut back too much, you're
Right.
going to find out from the kids quickly enough. You got a feedback
Right.
mechanism that most people don't have. And then you
Yeah.
can just
Okay.
ramp it up a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe that
Okay.
last 50% cut was too much. So,
Okay. All right. I will definitely work on that.
all right. So those are the things I would suggest working on. I don't even want to use the
Okay.
word working, just experimenting with.
Experimenting. Right. Not working.
Oh,
Experimenting.
well, your
Less effort.
working's not your issue. I mean, there are some people who take lessons who they really got them to get them going because they're,
Yes.
uh, and I
So
feel,
sluggish.
well, maybe a little well-directed effort might be a good idea. But
They
you
can have some of mine.
you are not in that category. Sorry.
No.
All
Yeah.
right. So I'm gonna stop the recording.